Hi everybody, my name is Professor Mukhtar Al-Hashimi. Today we are going to cover the strategic components and KPI sessions for the course of management, information management and strategic decision making. Now, it's very important that we need to understand within today we are going to elaborate to achieve the strategic tool sessions. We will elaborate on some theoretical components to understand the subject to enable us to solve the assignment that we have discussed in the course. So if you look at it, we have two major elements. One is we are going to talk about the data flow diagrams, and the other one is we are going to talk about an entity relationship diagram. That is when it comes to the strategic tool. The data flow diagram is a representation which is basically help people to understand how the external body interact with the processes and what are the data storage files that we need in the system. Is an overall representation model. In a data flow diagram, we have one of the model is called the process model, and we call that an element of the data flow diagram. So a data flow diagram has an element which is called a process, has also another element which is called the data flow, how the data flow into the process, has another one is called the data storage, where from the process we are storing a data that we need to store it to retrieve it for futures or read from, or store it and read from it and update. Other things is that we have the external entity, with it is the entity that initiated the process. It's very important, we need to understand that there are different symbols, okay? And there are one of the symbols is called Gantt-Saron symbols, and these are the representation for the process. And there is macro symbols, and we have also the most popular symbols that we use is the Visio, which is basically is Microsoft Visio that allow you to draw the data flow diagrams. Now, when we look at this, there are a uniqueness into that. One is that here in this process, you have the process name, and usually you got also the number of the process. Here you have the directions of the data flowing, and here is you have the what we call the storage file name. And in this case, this is D1. We could have more than one file. Therefore, we need to number the file. We call D1, T2, and so on. And this is the name of the file. Here we have the external entity. And in this case, the external entity is the entity that has interacted or provoked or initiated the process. So if we look at this one, we can understand the very simple technique. First, we have, this is the process ID. Here we have is the process name. And think of the process in this example is the process of archiving record. Mean that is a program which is going to archive the record. Now you could have it also as a student registration. You could call it also a bank loan or applying for a loan, or you could call it a process enrolling a student or registering a student or placing an order or registering a customer. Now this process in this example is the process which is basically in our second example is placing an order. In this process, we have an external entity, and that is the person who is going to interact with the program, interact with the process. In this case is the customer. And because there is a process, a task, or a program, that process is called enter order. And that process generates data, and this data is need to be stored. And we call that a data file. In this case is D, and the name of the file is an order. In doing so, you look at this one, you gotta see a very simple things. What you are seeing here, you're seeing that the customer is placing an order. And this order, that means the direction of the error, means that the customer is entering the data into this process. So this is data get in the process. And then this is the process which is after that is going to get out, mean it's going to store into where? Into the, what we call, into the data file. So the directions of the data is very important. So think about it. You have here is a customer. And here is a customer is an external entity. And here I have is a process. And in this process, I will call it a student registration process. Oh, sorry, ordering process. I will number it as a 1. So I will call it place order. So that's a process. And now this process is going to generate a data, and that data has to be stored. And in this case, this data is, we call it a data file. In this case is a D1, and we call it order file. Now, in this doing so, we need to understand, that means we explain, if you think about it here, we explain the process, which is the placing an order. We also identified who is initiating this process, which is a customer. And we also identify the file name, which is the process is going to generate a data, and this data need to be stored. Now, the other element here that we need to identify is the directions. Here, in this case, is the customer is basically initiating the process, and we call this is the data flow. That means customer is feeding in, getting in the process, the data. So the data flow from the customer to the placing order. Example, customer will supply his name. Customer will supply his address. Customer will enter the items. Customer will enter the quantity. So all this data is feeding in. Now this data is later is going to be stored. So that means from the process, the direction of the error is, this is the directions of the error, is that the data is going into the order. Now, let's go another example. If we look at it, another example. We want now to understand another example. What's the another example? Is we have now how many processes? We have 4 processes. The first process is process order. That means the order can be broken down into more detailed processes. In this case, it could be placing an order, mean placing a new order. It could be that the order, we need to delete it. In this case, we are canceling the order. And in this case, this process, which is placing the order, is need to be changed. So we call that process is update or modify or change the process. So a big process, placing an order like this, can be broken down now into what? Into multiple processes. So we think about it. This is the first layer of the first level, and now we are doing the details level. So let's understand the details level. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 processes. In the first presentation, which is in the first example, we have only 1 process, and this process is placing the order. Now we are going to break down that process into what? Into another details level, which is the second level. In this case, we are seeing the process of 1, that the order could be broken down in more details into another 4 processes. 1 is placing order, okay, order, a new order, process, in this case, processing a new order. Another one is, another process is changing the order. Another one is canceling the order. And the fourth one is, could be, we want to generate, summarize which are the order has not been fulfilled, mean has not been delivered. In example, we want to generate a report, or we want to display all the orders that has not been fulfilled. Now, going back, we could number these processes as 1. We number this as a process 2. And we number this as a process 3, okay? And we number this as a process 4. Now, we have identified the processes. Now, these processes need to interact to access a data file. Okay, in this case, the data file in this example is the order file, which is this one. So now we need also to understand who is the external entity that initiating this order. In this case, customer. Okay, this is the external entity, is what is the customer. So here is the customer. That's an external entity. Again, who is going to initiate this, okay, external entity? In this case is also the customer. And here is who is the external entity is going to initiate this, and in this case is the customer. Now, we need to understand who's the external entity for summarizing unfulfilled order. Usually in the business model could be the employee. So an example of an external entity is the employee. Now we need to go into another level. So that means, if you look at it, we identify the external entity, we identify the processes, we identify the data flow. Okay, so we need to identify the data flow. In this case, the new order, the data flow is creating, we are creating an order. In this case, we are, okay, what we do, we are canceling. In this case, what we are doing is we changing the order. In this case, what we are doing the summarize, okay, unfulfilled order. So now we have another level of a process that is basically a more detailed level. So we call this the higher level, and which is basically breaking down into 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, sub-levels. Now, let's understand this another examples. This example is an example which showing us again what we are to understand the data flow diagram. So this is a data flow diagram for a student is requesting to enroll in a course. So first of all, we need to understand this data flow diagram. We have the external entity is a student. We have 1, 2, 3 processes. In this case, we have a process called 1, verify availability, which is logical. For a student to enroll in a course, we must really check whether there is availability of a slot for that particular course. Upon the availability, if there is available, we're initiating another process, and in this case, this process is called enrolling the student. Now, upon the student is getting enrolled, we need to send a confirmation letter or an email to the student to say, congratulations, you have been enrolled into the course. So if we look at it, what we have 1, 2, 3 processes. Second things, we need to know the data, that data file we need. Well, logically, for the availability, we need to access the course file. So we call that file is the course file. We also, after the student getting enrolled, we need to update the student file. In this case, we are having a second file. It's called student master file. So now we will need to understand the processes, how does it work, and what is the external and the data flow. So there is in this example only one process, external entity, one external entity called student. So student will request the course. Upon requesting, he will trigger a process called verifying the availability. To check for the availability, this process is going to what? Read. In other words, will access a file and will retrieve the data that whether this course available or not available. So this is a data file. Then after that, upon there is availability, we'll initiate another process, and this process we call it enrolling the student. So when we enroll the student, this second process first need to again to access the course detail, and upon that need also to enroll the student that he is taking this course. And also we need to update in the student file that this information that this student is taking this particular course. Upon finishing this process will call another process called confirmation process, in which it will send to the student the confirmation. So to do that, we are very simple. We need in this example to identify first is the processes. We are doing now a data flow diagram for email student registrations for a university. So one is verify, okay, availability of the course. Another process is again is enroll the student into the course. And the third one is confirm, okay, 3, confirm the registration. Now we identified the processes. Now we need to identify the external entity, which is a student. Now we need to say, okay, a student is requesting, look at that, is requesting, okay, requesting a course. So that's the, what's this? Is student is requesting a course. So we'll call this requested course. Now, to request a course is mean that we need to have a data file called course file, And now we need to read from it. So that means the data has to come from the course file to the process. That's the reason we have the error like this. And then upon that, the process is going to do what? It's going to basically, okay, initiate another process based on what? Availability accepted. That means there is a slot, or there is no slot rejected. Now, when accepted, is going to do what? It's going to enroll the student. That means we need to do the following. We need one, again, to access. Look at that. We're reading the course detail. And then we need to update to say this student number is taking this course. So we are writing to the file update. And then we need to say update the student file. In this case, we are updating the second student file. We call this D1. We call this D2. Why? Because it's every file we need to give it a number. And then we need to update the student file. And we say that this student is enrolled in this course. Now, upon that, a third process is going to be triggered. And this process is called registration. It's confirm. And we come registering the student. This registering confirm, completing the registration, will generate an output, which is the student confirmation, okay, letter will be sent. So in summary, if you look at this, we have really understand in this example, the is a modeling process of a data flow diagram for a student who is really checking whether a course is available or not. Upon if the course is available, we will enroll the student into the course. Upon that, we complete the registration and sending a confirmation to the student to say, congratulations, we have really enrolled you in the class. So how did this process start? Start very simple. A student initiated a request, and that initiation of a request started with the process number 1. We call it verifying as the first process. To verify if there is an empty slot for the course, we need to read from a course file. And in this case, upon that, there is availability. Another process is going to be triggered or initiated, and this is called enrolling a student. Again, this process need to read the course details. What is the course? And the details. Example, accounting code, how many credit. Then upon that, we are enrolling, updating that there is adding a new count, a new number of students enrolled in this course. And then upon that, we are writing to the student file that this student is taking the accounting. And then we trigger another process, which is called registering confirmation. And this process is what confirming, sending an email. Thank you very much for the student for enrolling into the course. So this is another example that will give us a good understanding of, a data flow diagram. Now, in our first example, we had a level 1, then we break it to multiple processes as a detailed process. We call it level 2. Now, in this case, we are going to have another example, and this example, we call it Uber example. Now, a lot of you know what's an Uber. Uber is basically the model of an Uber car services is we have a customer, which is basically through a smartphone or through the internet will send a request for a car to pick them up. Now, that means we have a customer, and the customer, we need to understand where they are now located. And then Uber model basically have drivers, okay, many drivers. These drivers, they are basically around in the city, and we need to understand which of these drivers is capable to pick up this particular customer request. So usually the drivers is selected by too many aspects. One aspect is availability, and the second aspect is the distance, how close they are. Now, drivers in this models, okay, will be paid, and they will be paid by the bank, and the customer will also pay, and in this model, paying through the bank. So we call this Uber system have the higher is the context level. And this is a context diagram, which is representing an Uber information system, like a student registration system. And this is the higher level, is the context diagram. And here is the system, and here is showing me the external, okay, entities, okay, that the information system of Uber is going to interact. So let's understand this in a very simple form. We have, this is an Uber information system, okay, and put this in your mind. It can be broken down into another level, another level, another level, okay, means sub-processes. And Uber has a customer, okay, which is interacting with Uber information system. And Uber is also has drivers, which they are also interacting with Uber information system. And we have a bank, which is an external entity. So how many external entity we have? We have 3. First external entity is the customer. Second external entity is the drivers, and the third one is the bank. So let's understand this context diagram. First is Uber customer initiate a request. And in this case, it says you need by nature as a customer, you need to provide your details. That means you do what we call it an account. So this is an account details, name, customers, payment, credit card, all of that. Then we know the pickup location, mean that the customer wants to be picked from where, the destination this customer wants to go, and the type of car that the customer is requesting, and the payment information, credit card that they will pay. Now here is the customer is storing in, getting in data from customer into the Uber system. Now we know that there are drivers in Ubers, multiple drivers. So how drivers again, they will generate an account. They will generate an account. They will enroll themselves in Uber information system by creating an account. And a driver will say what type of car he has. A driver will say, we know the current location through the GPS, and payment information because the driver need to get their money. And drivers at one point have to tell me they are the one willing to pick up the request of the customer or not. So in this case, drivers could be accept or declining the request of Uber coming from a customer to Uber information system, where the driver will get a request and they accept or reject. Now, if the driver accepted, okay, now what they need to understand the pickup location of the customer. They need to understand the journey destinations from where the customer wants to go. And also they need to get a received after finishing the pickup, they will need to get a receipt confirmation that they get paid for. Now that means we have an external entity, and this external entity is a bank. And in this case, the bank is basically payment to drivers or payment from a customer. So in this case, bank entity, the third entity, and the bank entity is an external entity. And this external entity is nothing more than it's me from Uber information system, because customer is using, customer is going to pay, so customer payment is go to the bank. That means in this model, every customer will pay Uber through the banking services. Also, Uber information system wants to pay the drivers, so they will do payment for the drivers. Now, here is the bank is going to send to Uber to tell them we have received a payment from ABC customer. So we call this model is an Uber context diagram. And let's go again, try to understand it. We have here is an information system, okay, called, like we have university information system, we have a library information system, we have a patient information system, we have a bank information system. So this is the all systems, the highest level context diagram start with the name of the system. Okay, in this case is Uber information system. Now this is the whole Uber information system at the higher level. This Uber information system has to interact with the external world. So we call external entity. And in this case, one is external entity is a customer. In this case, since it's an Uber, we call it Uber customer. The naming is we are the people who basically, we name this external entity. Another external entity is Uber driver. Because as you know, Uber model is based on a drivers. They have agreement with Ubers in providing their cars to achieve the request made by the customer. Now, put in your mind that customers and a driver, they make a payment. And drivers also need to get the paid. So that means Uber information system requests that they have to do an interaction with what? With an external entity called a banks. Now, in this case, we have one external entity, 2, 3. Now, let's understand how things work. First, again, customers have to register, provide their account details. Also, Uber drivers, they have to register their account into the Uber information system. That's reasons we have their account details. Now, the customers have an account details, in this case, account detail, okay? And in this case, the driver account, okay, details. Now, customers will make also a request for a pickup, in this case, a pickup, okay, locations we need to know, and this is through GPS. And now we need to know this customer, where they are going. This is destination, where they are desired to go. We need to know the type of car that they are requesting. And we need to know also the type of payment, Visa, debit, or how they will pay. So this information they will be feed in from the customer to the Uber information system. Now, Uber, what will do, the information system will send a request to whom? To the request to the driver saying, wow, here you guys, we have a customer wants to be picked up. So we need to say to this driver, what is the pickup location that this the customer where he want. We need where they are. We need also to tell the drivers what is the destination, okay, destination of the customer. And then in this case, the drivers, okay, we know because they have told us what they are, what kind of cars they have. They also, we need to know the current location for the drivers, current location, okay, the current location. And drivers, usually the broadcast is sent to more than one driver. In this case, one of these drivers will tell us I am accepting or rejecting. So we have accept or reject. So that's what the driver is going to do. So in this case, one of these drivers will decide on picking up this customer. In this case, the customers will receive the service from the driver. That means the driver will go, know the destination, and will go and pick up the customer. And in this case, customers will make a payment. So payment is made by the customer. And then also in this case, since they paid, it will send an update to the information system of Uber as a received saying payment has been made from customer ABC. Well, Ubers have to pay the drivers. Uber has to pay the drivers. In this case, the information system of Ubers will make what? Will make also a payment for the drivers. This is a high-level context diagrams for Uber. Now, we'll go to the details level. So this is an Uber diagram's detail levels. In other words, think about it. This is the higher level, and now we go in details. So let's go the details. Remember, this is the context diagram. We have a customers, drivers, and a bank. So let's look at that. We have a customer, we have a driver, and we have a bank. Same external entities. In other words, we already defined this information system, which is Uber's, interacting with the outside world with those three entities. So let's understand this diagram. The first diagram is, again, we have customer register. Here is the customer register. So again, we have a login account, creating an account. Okay, in other words, login details. This is a process called account details or login, like what you have in your email. Now, this login is the customers will log in, password and this one. Verify if he is an existing customer, mean that we have to go to a data file, okay, a customer file. In this case, the example is a customer database to verify if this customer is in Uber database as a customer. And then upon confirmation, yes, he is. Now, in this case, this customer is making a request. When you make a request, this customer need to tell us what is the pickup destination. In this case, this is the pickup destination. Now, the pickup destination, calculate the cost for the destination because we know the current location and we know the pickup destination. We will broadcast it to the drivers to find out which is the drivers are available for this pickup destination. In this case, post a journey for available drivers, because we know the driver's current location and we know the current destinations of the customers and the locations. Then available will accept, one of the driver will accept, the driver will pick up the customers, customer make a payment make to the banks, and then look at this new process. We want to have the customer rate the driver. So this process is called rate drivers. Now, in this case, the customer, this process, which is rate the driver, it's a process, is who's initiating it is the customer. So customer giving us the rating. And in this case, the output of this, okay, the output of this process, again, the output of this process is going to go into where? Into the driver database. Now, in this case, let's see how many processes we have. First process we have is called the login process. Second process is finding the customer location. Third is calculating the destination, and upon that we know which drivers is closer to the request destinations of the current location of the customer. We go and we identify, maybe we send a broadcast to 5-6 customers. We identify which customer accept. One customer will accept. Then a service is done, payment is done. Then here is another process, is what we call rating. This upon rating, we need to put it in where? In the driver database. Now going in the same direction, since we have a customer registering, we have a driver register. In other words, we have a driver database. So again, external entity driver login into the accounting, into the login and it's using the same process. This process is used for customers verifying or a driver. But the process here is accessing different databases. If you are a driver, you are accessing a database or a data file called a driver file. You basically confirming it, mean you are accessing the file to see, is John 101 driver at whatever login and password he is really a part of the drivers of the Ubers. Yes, being verified. Now in this case, start this process. So we go now into, we done this example. In other words, this is a second example about Ubers. Now we will do, this is a details, okay, the context diagram. And now we will go into another example of a context diagram. This context diagram is a context diagram for a purchasing system. Now, I mean, again, we have a system. In this case, this is like we have there an Uber, okay, information system. Now we have a context diagram for a purchasing system. So think about it, a company, they want to create a system called purchasing system. That's what the name of the system. So this is a context diagram for a system called purchasing system. Now we need to know what are the external entity, mean this system is interacting with which external entity, who are the stakeholders. In this case, planning department, which is what their role, they are requesting material to be purchased. This material to be purchased has to be purchased from a supplier. So we have an external entity, in this case, called suppliers. And this supplier has to come to an extent, deliver the requested material, and in this case is the receiving department. Now we will understand how each external entity, example planning department or requesting department, they will tell us what they want. So this is they initiate. This external entity, planning department, say we want to buy an A4 paper 100 pack. Now the purchasing, they feed it into the purchasing system. Purchasing system will what? Will send this order to the supplier. And now this is the second. They send the order to the supplier. Okay. They send the order to the supplier. Now the supplier received the order, will decide, you know what, I'm going to deliver it. So he has to deliver it to the store or the receiving department. So receiving department, think of it as a store department. When they receive it, customer bring up we order 100 packs of A4 paper. Let's say he could deliver for us 40 pack out of the 100 or 100. In this case, we are receiving. So received, now the system will do what? Will receive, that means there is a receiving update, will receive from the supplier the requested order. Now here is the supplier will invoice us for the amount, or whether partial or full amount, for the materials that is being requested. Now the purchasing system here has to make what? A payment to the supplier. So now let's go into this again, an example. I have a context diagram, okay, for a system. We call it purchasing system. In this case, we're going to call it ABC company purchasing system. That's the name of the system. Now we have this system interact with 3 external entities. The first entity is the people who basically requesting. We call that planning, okay, department. They are what this planning department they want? They are requesting for a material. So we call it material requirement. So in this case, an example, they are requesting for 100 pack of A4 paper. Now they are initiating a request through this system. This system will do what? Is usually when you purchase material to come from a supplier. So the system will send an order request to the supplier. In this case, the supplier is now received an order from ABC company. So what the supplier will do? Has to deliver the requested material. Usually, we'll deliver it to receiving department, or we call it a store department. So the supplier, what they will do, they will bring the material. In this case, the material has the receiving material has to be updated, received, has to be updated, the quantity that is being received, confirmation. Now, let's say we requested 100 A4 pack of paper. We received 100. In this case, the supplier will do now what? Will send their invoice. So they will invoice. So that's the supplier. In this case, the supplier will invoice. That means the ABC company has to do what? They have to do payment. Payment for the quantity that they have delivered. So now let's initiate the sequence. Well, the sequence are very simple. We have a context diagram, which is the system name. We have the external entity, which is planning department, supplier, and receiving. The first sequence is a material request has been placed. The second, the system is going to send an order to the supplier. Supplier is going to do what? Is going to deliver the requested material. Then for the supplier will invoice for the material that they have delivered, and 5 is a payment has to be made. So we call this now is the context diagram. Let's go another details diagram. Now, the details diagram here is nothing more than, again, the whole external entities are going to be kept the same. The only things we are going to look at is to open this box and see how many processes under this system. And in this case, we are now looking at the detailed process. So the detailed process for this is as follows. Let's go back to this one. We have again all these red lines is represented as what we call, is the purchasing system. So all this box is presented now into the red dotted line. So everything under the red dotted line is presented as a purchasing system, in our example, ABC company. Again, department, receiving, supplier. So let's understand how many processes we have. In the example, in the context, we have only one process, we call it purchasing system. But in the level 0 diagram, we have how many? We have one process called order material, another process called update received, and a third process called decide what you will pay. And upon you decide what you will do, you will make a payment to the supplier. So if you remember, it's a purely representation of these three. So now let's understand, and I'll do it there. Let's understand how many processes we have. 1, 2, 3, 4 in this sequence. Well, the planning department, if you remember here, the planning department is requesting material, and in this case, that is planning department material request. They will place that through a process, this process, they call it is order material. Order material. Now, A program, think about it, a program, a process is initiated called ordering material. That ordering material will do the following. Well, we are storing a data. What is the material? What is the order number? Who is the supplier? The quantity. In this case, we have a data that is generated, need to be stored in a data file. In this case, we call it purchasing order file. Now, this process is we write to a data file, purchase order details, the items, the company, the supplier, the quantity. Now, this process will send an order to a supplier. In this case, supplier will receive the order, and order 101. Supplier will come and do what? Deliver the material. He will deliver it through what? Through the receiving department. Now, there is another process, and in this case, the process called update, okay, receiving file. This is called receiving program, receiving process. In this case, will receive what? Will receive the file. What are the quantity received? So the process will write what are the material received. So we have another file. We have the order and we have the received. And then upon the receipt, the supplier will say, you know what? I want to be paid for the amount of material that is being sent. And in this case, the supplier will invoice. Could be a full invoice or a partial invoice. In this case, we requested 100 A4 pack paper. They delivered 2 times, 1 times 20, 1 times 40. So we have them in the received file. Now, an invoice will be sent by the supplier, which is say, I will invoice you for 60 of the 100 that you ask. So now we will need to initiate a process called decide what to pay. Very interesting process. Okay, I want to see I'm paying you for what? You are sending me an invoice as a supplier. So against what? So I need to access, to retrieve, to check the order. Usually supplier will say to you, I deliver for you 20 pack of A4 paper on January 1st, okay, against order 101. So we need to go check it. Yes, we requested it. We requested 100, you delivered 20. So we want to check, did you really deliver the 20? Yes, we need to access what we call the received data file. Upon reconciliation, verifying that you really deliver what you are invoicing, which is from the order details and the receiving items, we will authorize payment. So that means there is a process here called authorization of payment. And this authorization payment is a fourth process to be what? To be initiated, to authorize. You send an invoice, an authorization said, yes, pay, and then a payment is made to the supplier. So let's try to do this again here. Again, if you remember, we had this context diagram for this example purchasing system. Now we need to look at the level 0, what we call level 0 for the purchasing system. Well, the external entities are the same because they are the same. We have here is the planning department, we have also here is the supplier. Okay, so now let's go on this one. We are going to do this on the practical board, flip chart. Again, we're going to do it. Why I want to do it? Because I want you to understand the step of thinking. Again, if you remember, we have here is the context diagram for this example, ABC purchasing system. We already defined the external entity, which is 1, 2, 3. And now we define the relationship of the external entity to the main system context diagram ABC purchasing. The planning is basically they are requesting a material. The material is sent to the supplier by the system as an order to the supplier. So the supplier is external receiving an order. Supplier will come to the department called receiving department. In this case is delivering the requested material. And then the supplier do what? Will invoice the company for the materials they deliver. We call that the supplier sending an invoice. The ABC company will do what? They will do the payment, and in this case, they will send a payment. If you look at it, payment is generated from the ABC to the supplier. So very important, the direction. System send out, data get out, data get in. So this is in, this is out. That's the error. Data get in, feeding in. Now we are going to look at the level 0, okay, of this example. So let's do the level 0 of this example. The level 0 of this example is, start with the external, again, planning department, supplier, and here is receiving department. Now, let's see how many processes we have. The first process I have is called the order process. 1, order material. That's the process. The second one is, here is the second process is called update. Received. File. Update. That's a process. Third one is the supplier. That's number 2. Third one, the supplier will invoice us. So we need to understand for what we will pay. So number 3 process is, in this example, decide, okay, what to pay. The fourth program process is what? Is to make payment. Pay the supplier. That's number 4. So now we have external. we have process 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we need to identify each process, the interactions between them and the external. A process generates data, so we need to store the data. So let's go through the sequence. The first is material requested. So planning department requesting a material. So we call that material requesting. Now, in this case, that's number 1. Okay, step number 1. So, planning department invoking a process called program called order material. Okay, what they are saying what is the material you want. That's the reason, the direction. Data get in. Now, the process, the order material will generate what? A data file. They will generate a data file. In this case, we will call this, okay, a data file. We call it D1, and we will call it, in this case, purchase order file. Okay, now this purchase order file is we're storing for us the order number, the items they order, and the details about the order. So up to now, we have the department, planning department requested. They requested through a process program called order material. That order material will store a data. That's reason storing out, storing a data, writing a data to a file called purchase order. Now, this purchase order need to do what? Need to be sent to where? To number 2, send to the order. Order, send to supplier. So that's the task number 2. So the supplier will get the order. Now let's see what's going to happen. Supplier will deliver the material. So again, supplier will deliver the material. That's number 3. And this material deliver is going to be written to a file, a data file 2. We call it received. Received, okay, file. So again, the supplier will deliver or confirming that we received, and this process will do what? Will write to a data file. Now, you can think of another things also, that this process will say, you know what, I want to check, is the material that I am, okay, receiving against which order. In this case, again, it could access what we call, basically reading, okay, from the order purchase file. So they are checking. Now in this case, okay, material received. Now look at that. The supplier is going to do what? Is going to send us an invoice. Send what? Send an invoice. So sending an invoice. That is number 4. Sending an invoice. Now, when we send an invoice, when a supplier sends an invoice, we need to know this invoice for what? So this process, we need to check. We pay for what? Deciding what we need to pay for what. To decide, we need to retrieve data from the purchase order, and we need to retrieve data from also from where? From the received. So that's very important. So we are receiving data, okay, we are checking the data, okay. He said to me here is an invoice for order 101, so we need to go check that's 101 exists or not. For 100 pack of A4 paper, so we need to check, is it received or not? Yes, we received it. In this case, we need to do what? We need to do an authorized payment, and that is what? Number 5. Okay, an authorized payment. So payment authorization. Now, payment authorization means we have to pay. In this case, a payment need to be made to whom? To the number 6, payment need to be made to the supplier. So, if you look at this example, okay, what do you really see? You see, one, we have an external, an external, an external. We have 3 external. You see also, we have an order process within this system. We have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 processes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So inside this systems is 4 programs, 4 processes. One program is to place an order. Another program is to receive a material. Third program is to decide on what to pay. And a 5th is to make a payment. Now, we have gone through the sequence of a step. This is step number 1, then the second, and then here is the third, receiving, delivering, and then initiating an invoice, then making an order, and 6, making a payment. Now, we will go to the next one. Let's look at this example we already discussed. Again, just to reinforce the thoughts that we have a student making a request for a course, checking whether a course available or not, maybe full, the class is full, so we check for number of enrolled or not, available slot or not. So we read from here. Then after that, it comes here to do what? To, yes, there is an empty slot. We will enroll the student. In this case, we need the details of the file to enroll. We need to say, okay, when he is enrolled, who are the student, and we need to update. And then we need to register. Now, if you look in your, okay, a strategic book, assignment, strategic tool assignment, one of your assignment is to draw a level diagram for taking a loan from a bank. So this is one of the assignment that is required for you. So now we go in the same concept to see, okay, a customer is applying for a loan in a bank. We have 2 external entities. One is a customer and one is the loan officer. These are external entities. We need to understand basically the processes involved. Well, logically, the first process is to check for the eligibility of this customer who's applying for a loan, whether he's eligible for a loan or not. Could be based on nationality, could be based on a credit history, could be based on many criteria. upon that, checking for accepted eligibility or rejections. When it's eligible, the customer will do what? Now will place a loan. So the customer, another program, will ask for the customer details, and then what is the loan need, it will write to the customer. So that's the loan process. The third process is initiated. The loan need to be what? Either received, so the officer will review it, and then the officer will do what? Will accept or reject, authorize the loan approval. So the loan get approved, mean authorized. Here is the authorization. The process, here is sending the loan application will send a feedback to the customer saying, congratulations, your loan get approved. Now, another process will be initiated, which is what? Is providing the loan to the customer. So again, this is a process of provide the loan. The loans will be provided to the customer. And then it will update, a file will be created called customer loan file. Customer loan file. From time to time, customer wants to see how much balance of his loan or how much payment he has made, and we call it, that's the loan file. So if you look at it, we have this problem is part of your assignment into the strategic tool. The assignment says the question is draw a level diagram, draw a level 1 diagram for taking a loan from a bank. So to do that, we need first to, again, if we will do the context diagram, mean it is going to be like that. Here is banking loan, and then here is the customer, and here is the officer, and then the interaction. But this question is asking us for level 1. Level, okay, 1 data flow diagram. All right, in this case, we need to do something of this, where here is a context, okay, diagram. Okay, so now let's do the level 1 diagram for applying for a bank loan. So I am going to reproduce this in this board through the flip diagrams, flip chart. So again, first I need to identify the external entity. In this case, my external entity is a customer. And then also my another external entity is what? Is the loan officer. Thank you. So these are the external entity. The second step, I need to identify the processes, okay, involved in level 1, the processes. Well, the first process is we call this here 1, process number 1 is verify eligibility, and the second process is what? Is again the second process, okay, is loan application, mean after the customer is becoming eligible, will apply for a loan. And the third one is a process number 3, is what is provide loan. So we identify the external entities, which are in red colors, and we identify the main processes, which is 3 processes. Now we need to identify the data file. So the data file, first, customer check for availability, mean he has to check for a data, and this data we call it customer data file. And then upon the loan is getting approved, we have customer loan file, and this is, we call it D2. So let's do it together. The customer first initiate will apply for a loan. Apply for a loan. To apply for a loan, this process, customer will put his identification number, social security number, national ID number. We need to go and check, okay, based on the information that this customer put. A data file, we call it data file 1, D1, we call that customer file. In this case, the customer, the process will read, a data will get in to the process. So we'll go, is this customer exists or not? Yes, exists. Then a process here is verifying, is he eligible, meeting the criteria for a loan? Yes, he's meeting the criteria for a loan. So we call that accepted, mean is eligible. Or it could be not meeting, so a message will be, you are not eligible, rejected. Now, upon eligibility, what's going to happen? A new process will be initiated, process number 2, called loan application. The loan application means you are applying online in the bank. So what do you need? First, you need to get again the information about the customer. So we call that customer detail. So we will access this file and read from it, get data from it. Now the customer fill in the screen, and then we need to update the customer file. We say he applied for a loan on this day for this amount. So we are what? We are writing, okay? We are storing data in the file. We call that update, okay, loan file. Now, in this case, this process will send a message, or time to time a query is coming to a screen or a print to the loan officer. Here is a pending or received loan. So we call it, in this case, the officer will check how many loans are received and pending. So we call that received application. In this, the loan officer job is to review this application, to review it, and then what they do, either reject or accept. In our example, he could be authorizing the loan. So we call that loan authorization. Authorize the loan. So that's it. So look at it in this case. See this? 1, okay, customer apply for a loan. 2, customer basically here, 2, customer, okay, apply for it, give us the details. 3 is, again, the application, the officer will be informed of the pending application. Some of these application will get approved. So we'll do an authorization. That's number 4. Okay, and now this program will call another process. In this process, received authorization. Received authorization. So we have a process can call a process. A program can call a program. Now, look at that. We have a loan being, okay, application. Okay, application is basically filled. Now, look at that. This process will do what? Will inform the customer feedback, give feedback. Example, the feedback is, thank you for applying a loan for our bank. So this is a message sent to the customer. Okay, now, in this case, officer receives, approves some of these application is authorized, provide the loan. So how you provide the loan? You basically, you provide a loan, you give a loan, give loan to the customer. When you approve a loan, what do you need to do? You need to create a loan file. You need to create a loan file. In this case, this is D2 file, and we call it customer loan file. Okay, and that's the one, customer loan file. This customer loan file means we are writing, storing, you know, the details of the loan. This, if he's taking 48 months of loan, so there will be here 48 time schedule that we expect this customer to pay a loan details. Now, customers will be, again, will be told about theirs. This is again, here is applying for a loan. Customer will be told about their loan, will be given the loan, but customer from time to time wants to do what? Wants to get view or overall status of their information about the loan, information view. In this case, reading, customer is reading, viewing. So customer again can read from the file. So in this case, we have this assignment has been, we solve it. Now, part of your assignment is also to look into and how we can break down this eligibility. So can we go to level 2? Yes. These are, think about this one. This is a process. Now this process, we can break it down into another sub-process. So what it is, this sub-process? Just think about it. Verifying a loan, we break it down into 2 processes. One process is called, is looking for customer history, you know, based on credit line, that past history. So there is a program which is we run his history. Okay, example, risk assessment. We are calculating the benefits. Is he on, we can give him or not to be eligible. Another one, we need to look at the customer, okay, history. So we need to go to the customer details, history. Now we need to know, we done this one, okay, we done the data flow diagram, which is, you know, now another thing we want to see, can we really break this to a lower level? Yes, we can break it on a lower level. So how we can break it to a lower level? Take an example. An example is that I want now to come to this eligibility process. And I want to ask myself a question. Can I really break this eligibility process program? Can this process break down into several processes? The idea is yes. Example, this process can be break down into, okay, example, for this process to be really completed, it will call another 2 programs. Example, 1 program, I'm checking your credit history. I'm checking, you know, as a customer, I'm checking the customer credit history, how he was paying, how many checks are returned, and so on. Another process I'm checking is the eligibility of, example, based on a criteria. Okay, benefits, is that how many loans he have, and is the total loan will allow him for new exposures on extra loan. Another one is I want to check another process, example, is based on nationality matrix or employability matrix or employment. So if you look at it, this process is breaking down into 1.1, another program process, is 1.2, another process, 1.3 is another process. What does this mean? It means that this process is really by itself altogether. When you add all these 3 processes, they will be an equivalent to that. So we call this is the parent process, and we call this the children process. Okay, children process. In other words, we are saying now process number 1 is breaking down into 3 sub-processes. In other words, we have what we call balancing of the process. So let's go on to this. Okay, we're going to erase all of that. So now we're going to create another process. So let's look at our example. In our example is, all right, in our example, we will do this, is basically, okay, we will say, okay, erase all. In this process now, if you remember in the previous process, this process number 1, we are now going to look at what we call sub-processes. So look at that. Our sub-processes is this one. Verifying eligibility has 2 main processes, 1.1 and 1.2. In other words, it has a process of eligibility and a process of customer details. So again, here we have a customer as an external entity, apply for a loan. This applying for a loan will invoke this process, which is a process of eligibility. Okay, this process of eligibility will really call 2 processes. 1 process is called verifying, and 1 process is called customer details. So in this case, we have 1.1 and 1.2. 1.1 is really accessing the customer file. We call that a detail process.